What's up, everybody? Name Code Dustin here. Fantasy Smack Talk, Sleep Prince galore. Before we get into it, this is our bi-weekly baseball show, and as always, we're going to start off with a quick little tip. So, Dustin, go ahead and give the quick little tip.
So, trade deadline. We'll be here very soon.
Real trade deadline.
As far as the real trade deadline goes. And fantasy baseball doesn't play a huge factor except for really closer-type positions. So, a lot of times teams are definitely just looking for bullpen help. We already saw it already with K-Rod going over to Baltimore. Opens up the position back for Jim Henderson, who we're about to talk about. So that's really the biggest factor for fantasy baseball. So you really just want to be keeping an eye on which closers or which setup men, which bullpen guys might be getting dealt. Where are they going to land? You'll hear a lot of reports on that over the next couple of weeks. Those are the things to really just keep an eye on. If an outfielder gets traded, it's not going to be that big of a difference. It's really just the closer stuff and that type of stuff that matters.
There should be a few of them. So, Dustin, the first one happened. Jim Henderson gets a bump. So go ahead.
Jim Henderson gets a bump from Milwaukee, only on 60% of leagues. I think Henderson's the guy to add if you have the choice between him and Axford. They're already saying that Axford's probably going to get back into the mix as well. He's been pitching great, so he probably will, but my money's still just a little bit on Henderson, so we'll see how that shakes out. But, if you have the choice, I would go with Henderson, but both those guys have value at this point.
All right, the guy I'm going to be talking about is Will Myers. An outfielder, only owned in 70% of leagues. This has been a top prospect. We actually really liked him coming into the year. We said he's got a ton of good pedigree, ton of potential, and he's living up to it. Batting .322 right now, 4 bags, 5 home runs, 21 ribbies already. Hasn't been playing a full season. 70% of leagues, that should not be the number. It should be 100% of leagues. There's definitely a team out there that needs him to plug into the outfield.
And the last guy we're going to talk about ads in all leagues is Andre Ethier. We talked about it in our last show, how it seems like the proven kind of older players that might not be doing as well as they've kind of done in the past aren't getting nearly as much respect this year for some reason. We talked about last show, Jayson Werth was a guy that we talked about, and he's been on a tear lately. He's owned in probably 30% more leagues over the last couple of weeks. I think the same thing needs to happen with Ethier. Only owned in 55% of leagues. I know he's not having that great of a year, but he's potentially at the beginning of a very hot streak for him. He's a very streaky player, and some of his hot streaks are the best in all of baseball. I don't know if you remember what he did, at the beginning. I think it was a couple years ago.
It was like 2 years in a row he started off hot.
Yeah, this guy, his hot streaks are really hot. So pick him up, ride out this hot streak, see how long he can go.
All right, let's now take a look at guys to be adding in deeper leagues. Dustin, go ahead and start us off as well.
Scott Kazmir is another guy who kind of fits that same mold, only on 15% of leagues. The hate has gone too far. You have to start potentially believing these numbers. He just keeps on doing it. He's putting up solid stats. 15% of leagues at this point, I feel, is a joke. I know it's been a few years since he had relevant seasons, but this guy's still not that old. He could be having a monster year. No one's picking him up.
All right, I got a reliever for you, and that's Melinson with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Grilly's on my teams, and unfortunately on the DL, and then this guy picked up Mark. But either way,
that was quick.
He was just too quick for me. So here's the thing: he's been pitching great all year in the setup role for the closer. Now that he's going to be taking the closer duties, I don't think he skips a beat. Should be getting plenty of opportunities for saves with a great ERA, great whip while he's doing it.
Next, we got a young pitcher for you, and that's Chris Archer for Tampa Bay. Only on 45% of leagues at this point. I'm not believing what he's done so far this year. His numbers are really good in the bigs. In the minors, he had solid numbers. The K counts were there. I do think, Major League Baseball will catch up to him at some point, but he's still a good enough pitcher to be getting some fantasy attention. I think he's worth an ad in deeper leagues.
All right, next we got another outfielder, and that's Christian Yelich. He's a young guy, got called up. He's kind of been, he hit a home run, I believe it was one of his first games. Got a lot of hype. We don't necessarily buy him as being like a Will Myers type player, but he could certainly be productive in the minors. He did a little bit of everything with some power. He had some home runs, extra bases, got some bags. His average kind of slips, so that's why we're a little iffy on him. But still, in those deeper leagues, he's a guy worth adding at this point.
Got a young catcher for you, and that's Devin Mesoraco for Cincinnati. Only on 5% of leagues. Here's the thing with him. He's not going to blow you away with his numbers, but obviously with a shallow position at catcher, he's one of the biggest catcher prospects in the game. There's a lot of hype around him. He had some success in the minors, so if you're not happy with your catcher, if you're looking for a second catcher to plug and play in daily leagues, he could be a guy to definitely take a look at.
All right, if you're in a deep league and you need a shortstop, we have Villar. He's a shortstop with the Houston Astros. You know, in terms of it, you can't think too much. He's only had a handful of bats so far in the major leagues, but he's interesting enough that he has a decent average, should throw in enough speed to make him somewhat fantasy relevant. Shortstop's, again, a shallow position, so this is, again, guys to be out in deeper leagues.
Next, we got the tank, Viciado, only on 20% of leagues. I love this guy coming into the year. You know, he's really a fun player to watch. He hits the ball as hard as probably anyone in the league except for maybe Stanton. But this guy has a ton of potential. He's battled injuries this year, hasn't really been able to get things going, but I think he's healthy now. He's starting to hit home runs again, and I think it's time to start picking him back up.
All right, known to 20% of leagues, and that's Matt Adams, a guy that you should be looking at in deeper leagues. The reason he's playing is because Holiday's hurt. Now, you got to remember, he should be playing hopefully more than he is. You know, it's the funny thing about it is, in terms of how St. Louis is playing right now, who knows what's going to actually happen with Holiday, but Matt Adams deserves to be playing a lot more. Regardless, while Holiday's hurt, he's a guy certainly to be adding if you need any help at first base.
And one guy to keep an eye on and maybe even add in deeper leagues, or I think he should be added in some deeper leagues depending on if you want to take a gamble on a young starting pitcher, but Alex Wood. You know, Atlanta's starting rotation's a little banged up right now. He's got a great opportunity to show us what he can do, and the time that he's been in the majors has been very impressive. He's been very impressive in the minors. I actually really like this young kid. I think he could have a really big upside, and I don't know if his rotation spot is guaranteed. That's why I'm saying to keep an eye on, but I do think he's worthy of an ad in some way.
Braves always find pitchers.
They do.
They always bring them up. They're always good.
That's what they do. Nameco's over here, Dustin's right here. All our football stuff is up. If you got any questions, get them in the forum.
At Fantasy Advice on Twitter.
Subscribe on YouTube.
That's right, you made up for it.
Yes.